So, as the watch lying community has been having to answer for, in some cases, years and years of promising a soon coming rapture that will pull every Christian out of their misery or suffering or trouble or inconveniences or whatever and into heaven and thus escaping this world, but it has not happened. It's not delivered on the promise. And particularly, it's gotten pretty hot the last couple of years with pandemics and wars and things that are scary. And yet, nothing happens. They fail to deliver on this promise they keep making. And it's funny because a promise is something that maybe you can keep. Maybe. I mean, we're human beings and we have a hard time keeping our own promises. I fail to see how Brother Chooch and other guys can promise things on behalf of God to other people and expect that somehow it's going to be kept. How do they know? They're not in charge. God is in charge. And it's funny because as they fail over and over again, you'll hear them eventually say, well, you know what? We're only human. We see through a glass darkly. It's in God's perfect timing. We leave it to God. And I'm like, every time they do that, which is every few months of failure, I say to myself, why didn't you say that 3 months ago? Why 3 months ago or 6 months ago were you, in the name of God, promising people that the rapture is any second? Why were you doing that? Now you're saying, well, it's all just God's timing. So interesting, isn't it? But as they've gotten more and more frustrated and their users have gotten more frustrated, their subscribers, they've started doing more and more videos like this. And here's Bro Chooch attempting to justify his behavior. And of course, he thinks he's right. Let's listen in. I'm going to make a few comments.
Sometimes I wonder, thanks everybody. Sometimes I wonder why, as a Christian, maybe you, maybe myself could feel like the black sheep if you think too much about the rapture or you think too much about the Lord's return. I think.
So let's start right off the bat. No, Chooch, it's not that you think about it too much. It's you talk about it and you tell people it's coming soon and here's why. That's what you do too much. So let's be clear. You can think about whatever you want. It doesn't bother me what you think about. What bothers me is your testimony when you get on YouTube in front of thousands of people, many of them unsaved and searching for truth, and you say, I have the truth, here it is, Jesus is coming any second, probably this year. And then it fails, and you just used God's name to tell somebody a lie. So it has nothing to do with what you think, per se.
More people would, more fellow believers would probably be concerned over the course of time if one particular believer's too concerned or talks too much about the rapture.
There you go, talks too much. And again, I would warn you, if you're thinking about this only, you got your priorities messed up, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later here.
Which is kind of interesting because we're called the bride of Christ, right?
Actually, no, we're not. I want someone to show me one verse in the Bible that actually says the church is the bride of Christ. Meanwhile, in Ephesians, Paul says we are already one with Jesus Christ as his own body, just like a married man and woman are one. We're already one with him. So how can we be one with him already in the same, when God uses that metaphor, because clearly it's a metaphor, even he thinks it's a metaphor. In Ephesians, Paul says metaphorically, we already are one with Jesus as his body. So what are you talking about? We're still waiting to be married? I want an explanation of that. I want any of these pre-trib or pre-millennial types to tell me what Ephesians is talking about. It's Ephesians 5.
And we're called a bride, but we're not married. We're spoken for.
It's not what the Bible says.
Bride price. But the bridegroom has gone to prepare a place. So in the symbolism of the Galilean wedding,
Yeah,
The next step would
see, all of that is extra biblical. There's nothing in the Bible about a Galilean wedding, nothing in the Bible about any kind of wedding tradition. God is not God does not follow the traditions of people in how he deals with people. He has his own ways. God's ways are not our ways. He doesn't say, "Wow, that's a really cool metaphor, that Galilean wedding. I think I'll use that when I plan in the eternal ages past what I'm going to do with my son and his two comings." How do you Where do you get off saying stuff like that? I know it fits well with your rapture theories, but it's not in the Bible. So do you see how quickly he veers off into territory that's not biblical? He's talking about we're a bride of Christ, which is not in the Bible. We're actually already one with him like a man and wife. It's clearly, explicitly in Ephesians. So we're not waiting around to get married. Number two, he talks about this Galilean wedding thing because, clearly Jesus has left us and we're waiting around for him to come back so he can marry us. That's not in the Bible. It's a theory. It's speculative. And by the way, I don't even find any proof anywhere outside of the Bible that Jewish weddings, Galilean weddings, were conducted in just the manner that they say.
be the father telling the son, it's time, go get your bride.
That's not
And so
biblical.
the question is, the bride, if she's really enthralled and in love with the bridegroom, wouldn't she be thinking about
Okay.
her husband to be pretty much all the time,
Well, okay.
or a great deal of the time?
So here we go. So yeah, of course she would. But where does it say that thinking about Jesus all the time? Now let's assume he's right about this bridegroom thing, which I want a verse that says that he's telling the truth about that. But okay, let's say he is telling the truth. Chooch is right. We're waiting around for our groom. Where does it say in the Bible that our time and efforts and energy and thoughts are to be wholeheartedly centered on when Jesus is going to come get us out of the planet? What about all the other parts of thinking about Jesus and talking about him and fellowshipping with one another around him? For example, Jesus and Paul both commanded the church to remember the Lord in his death with the communion elements of the bread and the cup. That is an explicit order from Christ to us. And then backed up, Paul comes along later and says, yeah, every church assembly needs to be doing this on a regular basis. What about that? I'd be willing to bet that Chooch goes to a church that does that maybe once a month, twice a month. You know, I'm not going to judge the way other people do it, but it's like I bet Chooch talks about the rapture a heck of a lot more than he talks about the death of Christ, than he remembers the death of Christ. And Christ commanded us to do that. Jesus didn't sit in the upper room with the disciples the night before he was betrayed and took bread and said, now, whenever you break this and eat it amongst yourselves, I want you to remember I'm coming soon in a rapture to remove you from the planet and save you from 7 years of hell. And then we'll go up and party in heaven while the world is on fire. And then I'll come back with you and take over and kick everybody's butt. Just remember that. I want you to think about that all the time. Even when you're not taking this bread and wine, think about that every day, all the time. More than that, I want you to talk about it out loud. Think about it out loud in public in front of thousands of people. And then, oh, wait, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. Don't just talk about it. Speculate about when it's going to happen. And then feel free to go ahead and use my glorious name, my holy name, as you speak about these things and speculate about time frames and seasons. And, feel free to go ahead and use my name. I don't care if you're wrong. Just do it again the next day if you're wrong. Can you show me in the Bible where Jesus said that?
I think so. And so as we look at 2022 and we look at 2020, um, I hate to say it, 2023 if we're still here. And I would hate to say it even more, 2024 if we're still here.
You know what? Isn't holy living actually defined in the Bible as living for the Lord and doing his will in our lives? And then when we suffer for his name, we take it patiently and learn from that suffering, knowing that it's perfecting us and teaching us patience and teaching us hope. Isn't that what holy living is? These guys seem to think holy living is none of that. Instead, crying and whining and complaining on YouTube channels, Lord, please come quickly. I'm so exhausted. Oh, please come quick. That's holy living?
But if you're fully in love, if you're gaga about your bridegroom, you long for his return.
It's not
And
even a
so it can't
thing.
come soon enough.
That's just not even a thing. It's just not even a thing. There's no. By the way, Chooch, I'd like this explanation. If this is all something that's in the Bible, supposedly, and we're all supposed to believe it because it's scriptural about this wedding thing and these Jewish / Galilean ceremonies, why didn't Paul the Apostle explain any of it to Gentiles? If this is so daggone important that you will defend it to the death, no. I need to get on YouTube every night and talk about this for an hour. It's so important. Where is Paul's explanation of, where is his command to do what you're doing? Where is Paul's explanation of the Galilean wedding and what it means? Because how in the world would any Gentiles know any of this without a Jew telling them? Would you like to explain that if this is so important? Where's the Bible? All right, so that's good. That's enough. That's my thoughts on this. Chooch, I hope you reconsider. You got a great heart. I believe you're sincere, but I believe you are so sincerely wrong, and you are squandering, just absolutely squandering your gift and your time and your pretty large, subscriber base here and influence on YouTube. You're squandering it. You're wasting all kinds of time on this nonsense. You will be here for 2022. You will be here for 2023, 2024, and beyond. You're wrong. Your doctrine is false. And even if I'm wrong and you're right, you don't know when. And you're not commanded to figure it out.